The Northtown News Magazine is brought to you in part by eVoter. eVoter is proud to be a sponsor of the Northtown News Magazine.
Hello, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
I'm Marty Levinson, and you're watching Northtown News Magazine.
For the identity of the real Marty Levinson, please stay tuned to the Northtown News Magazine.
Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to that lemon light city, sweet hopes.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine show with Sonny Hirsch, our cameraman, and the greatest host around, Sonny Myers.
That's a keeper. I'm keeping that. Thank you, Marty. Avi Myers here, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Dial us up on the World Wide Web at www.ntnm.org, where 25,000 people in the first 4 months of the year have watched shows. And considering the fact that we don't have sex, drugs, and rock and roll, we really do appreciate it. It means you really had to want to tune in, and we do thank you. We're real big on CAPS, caps24.org. That's where all the community policing meetings are for West Rogers Park and Rogers Park. Go to the meeting live, talk directly to your policeman. Very important. There's message boards all over the place that get all kinds of things wrong. Not to mention the fact that unfortunately the message boards in our part of town are run by people who actually, one's got an active political campaign fund, the others do work for political candidates. You'll even see their names on D2s. They're not there to benefit you. They're there for the wrong purposes, and we urge you to avoid them. It might be a nice place to meet your neighbors, but I'd watch it for the boards. Excuse me, at this point, I also want to thank Sonny back. Sonny, actually, this is 2 months between tapings, and we're really glad to have Sonny back. Sonny, of all things, being chairman of the DAC, actually was the victim of a knife wound. Now, thank God it was a qualified surgeon operating on his back, but we're happy to have him back here, and I think I've told that joke too often. It's not as funny as it used to be. It is a pleasure and privilege to have the Republican candidate for Congress for the 9th Judicial District, who's actually causing quite a stir and giving somebody the first race they've ever really had to worry about since they first ran, Joe Pollak. Joe, how you doing?
Great, nice to be back.
First of all, thank you, and people are starting to get excited about your campaign. Tell us about it.
Well, people are excited because we have a real choice this year, and the choice is pretty clear. We have a choice between moving forward, building our economy, creating jobs, lowering taxes, and making our congressional district a place that hums with life and with new opportunity. Or we can stick with the big spending, the high taxes, and the over-heavy regulations that keep people from achieving their dreams. That's the choice in front of us in this election, and I'm very glad to be able to provide the voters of the 9th Congressional District with a real choice.
Now, you've been all over Fox News, you've been all over regular newspapers, you've been all over YouTube. I mean, you've really been creating quite a stir. I've even got some of the neighbors here today who wanted to see you.
Well, we're raising issues people care about. There are very, very pressing issues right now in the country, the economy. People are also worried about fixing the health care bill, which was severely flawed, and we're now finding out it cost way more than we were told. People are also worried about national security, and particularly the relationship between the United States and Israel. And people want to choose alternative policies on all of these issues. People want the administration and Congress to start listening. And that's why there's been a great upsurge of interest in my race and other races, but particularly in the choices that are on the table this year in November 2010.
As a matter of fact, I've been reading national stuff where they're actually singling out your race as a race to look at from a national standpoint.
Well, it is a very important race because if we can win in this congressional district, which is right in President Obama's backyard and is part of the Chicago machine as people see it, if we can win here, then that sends a signal, a very loud and clear signal to Washington that the American people want to see a real change. You know, Alexis de Tocqueville wrote that the people of a democracy love change, but they fear revolutions. We voted for change in 2008, and instead we got a revolution. People are going to vote for change again in 2010, not to start a revolution as in 1776, but to stop one. We want to get back to the basics. We want to get back to the idea that every American, regardless of race, gender, national origin, anything like that, can get ahead by starting with their dreams and moving forward based on their own skill, their own effort, and the value they create for the people around them. And that's very simple, but that's not what's going on in Washington. We need to set that right.
No, that's not even close to going on in Washington. As a matter of fact, I wonder if almost anybody in Congress at all has any idea what a normal person has to go through.
Well, you know, there's a set of rules for them in Washington and a different set of rules for us here. You know, President Obama was talking about how great the health care bill was, but I don't actually think he read it, because deep in the pages of that health care bill, it appeared that the leadership staffers who worked on writing the bill had exempted themselves from the insurance provisions of the bill. It's things like that that really make people upset. The idea that Congress legislates one thing for the American people and another thing for themselves.
Right. They don't. The Social Security is not a problem for them, and you know, even the basic expenses, the pensions they get are beyond belief.
Right, and now that Representative Schakowsky sits on the fiscal commission that the president set up, she's talking about taking away the tax credits that people get for saving in their IRAs and 401ks. Now, she doesn't have to worry about her congressional pension, but we all have to worry about saving for our retirement. And I don't think we want to punish the hardworking families of the 9th Congressional District or any other district who are doing the right thing, the responsible thing, by saving for retirement. But that's what they're doing in Washington right now. Rather than say, let's look at where we can make some cuts in spending, let's look at where we can exercise some self-control, they're saying, let's look at where the privately held wealth is in this country and go grab it.
And yeah, you're gonna. Well, first of all, no socialist country's ever succeeded. You know, they've all fallen under, and if there's no incentive for people to make money, why do they want to?
Right, and people are looking at what's happening in Europe right now, and in Greece in particular, and saying, could that happen here to us? And I think that we're not Greece. I mean, the difference between the United States and Greece is that in Greece, people are coming out into the streets to protest against spending cuts. And in the United States, people are coming out into the streets to protest for spending cuts. People are marching into Daley Plaza, for example, asking for fiscal restraint and fiscal conservatism. That's the greatness of the American people and the enduring success of the American project, but we have to get it right this November. If we don't stop things from moving in that direction the way they have been for the last couple of years, we are going to see a continuing slide downhill. That's why we have to make a difference this November, and that's why it's very important that we have a choice.
No question about it. So, I mean, campaign-wise, how busy are you? What are you doing to get your message to people?
Well, you can hear I'm just getting over a cold. I've been working very, very hard, very late nights, very early mornings, getting out there and meeting as many people as I can, on the phone as often as I can be, speaking to people, meeting voters, and also just doing a lot of the other kinds of things candidates have to do, speaking to the media, writing, talking to the press, all those sorts of things. I'm working as hard as I possibly can. I left my full-time job at the end of April, and now I'm devoting myself full-time to this, and just working as hard as I can, and I'm very glad that what we've achieved so far in this campaign is we've given the people of the 9th District a real choice. And whatever happens in November, I'm very proud to have done that.
You know, speaking of your voice, it's funny for those people who don't know, and probably most of you don't know. Rabbi Moskowitz was telling me that when you stayed over at Northbrook by him on a Shabbos on the Sabbath, that speaking of your voice, you also davened Musa for the Alma, you know, as the cantor, as well as presented a Devar Torah, you know, the biblical word to the congregation that day.
Well, it was an honor to be able to do that, and a very interesting thing about that particular parsha was it was the story of leprosy, how to cure leprosy, and you know, the Bible goes into detail and it says if there's a blemish on your skin, then you're unclean. But there's a passage that says if your entire skin is blemished, then you're not unclean. If you're a very confusing passage. How can something be impure, but if you're entirely covered, you're pure? And it's this idea that I turned it into a sort of a political idea. The Bible says that we are not supposed to be hostile to difference. Difference is very important. The idea is not that you have to insist on a perfect world, but advocate for your best idea, the things you believe in, and tolerate the views of others. That's not what we see going on in Washington today. We see an all or nothing approach where the president says, I won, and therefore I don't have to listen to anyone else who agrees with me or disagrees with me, where the Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, is pushing a very, very radical agenda and not listening to people. The health care bill didn't get a single Republican vote, but many Democrats voted against it. In fact, the only bipartisan position was against the bill.
Matter of fact, they basically had to bribe like crazy enough Democrats to pass it.
And I think let's get back to the solutions that both parties understand and agree with. Let's get back to things that have worked, whether Democrats have supported them or Republicans. Let's talk about an investment tax credit the way President Kennedy had done in the early 1960s. Let's talk about some of the things that Bill Clinton did in terms of keeping our budget within bounds and sending a signal to investors that America is a safe place to invest and a place that takes fiscal responsibility seriously. These are things both Democrats and Republicans can agree in. Let's put the economy first. Let's look at priorities that work, that both sides of the aisle will agree with, and let's move forward on that basis. Not rejecting people, casting them out as lepers if they happen to disagree, whether they're Republicans or Democrats.
Very good. Very good. Let's talk about, no, that's interesting fiscal policy, no question. Let's talk about Israel for a little bit, because obviously I've got a lot of Jewish watchers. Okay, so where do you stand on Israel?
Well, my first point of departure on Israel is that Israel is not the problem. And I think the administration has taken the view that Israel is the problem, Israel is the obstacle to peace in the Middle East. And I think paradoxically and ironically, that makes peace harder to achieve because it encourages Palestinians and other Arab countries to dig in and make more excessive, more extreme demands. You know, I've had a lot of questions recently about this Ramat Shlomo issue and the housing and so on. And the best response is to bring up a map and say, this is actually where Ramat Shlomo is. It's actually west of the old city. It's right there surrounded by the city of Jerusalem. It's integrated into the rest of the city. This is not worth causing an international incident over. Why did the Obama administration single out Israel? And more importantly, why is Congress so silent? Representative Schakowsky hasn't said anything about it. The only two representatives on the Democratic side that have said something about it were Chuck Schumer from New York and I think Anthony Weiner also from New York. But otherwise, there's been complete silence. That's wrong. That sends the wrong signal. We need Congress to understand that the United States and the American people are 100% behind Israel. That's the only way that there's security in the Middle East. When we stand with Israel, there is peace. And there's peace because people understand that Israel's security is inviolable.
Very good. Very good. You got 1 minute for an issue. Pick your issue. Go ahead.
Well, let's talk about jobs. Let's talk about jobs because that's the issue on most people's mind. Illinois has lost a large number of jobs. When the stimulus bill was passed in February 2009, Representative Schakowsky promised us that it would save or create 148,000 jobs in Illinois. Instead, we've seen Illinois lose almost 200,000 jobs, and the Chicago metro area has lost more jobs than any other metro area in the country. That's clearly the wrong way to go. What we have to do to create jobs is get back to balanced budgets, get back to policies that help investors, that help small business, like an investment tax credit. Let's get into allowing people to keep their savings, not raising taxes, not allowing tax cuts to expire, not taking away tax credits as a way to balance the budget, but looking at how the federal government has to obey the same rules of personal responsibility that you and I have to obey. You wouldn't run your household budget the way the federal government is running our national budget. We need to see some of that personal responsibility that we have to exercise reflected on a national level with political responsibility. And once politicians in Washington get that right, once we send the right people to Washington who understand that the economy and jobs are the #1 priority, then I think we'll see jobs start coming back to the Chicago area. We'll see investors coming back and understanding this is an investor-friendly place, not a place that's hostile to investors. And that's the best form of insurance, is a job. The best form of helping people is allowing people to achieve their dreams. That's what the focus has to be, and that's what we need to do in Washington.
Very good. You want to give us your contact information if people want to contact your campaign?
Sure. You can call our campaign office at 312-912-8110 or find us on the web at www.pollakforcongress.com.
Okay, and I want to thank Ashley Kane and for helping set everything up today. I want to thank you, Joe Pollak, and good luck in the election, which is already in progress.
Thank you.